Hello YouTube, here's my boy.
Press the applications bell and the subscribe button in below.
And thank you.
And thank you.
Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about our little van again. The model of it is a DA64V. Of course it's automatic, all-wheel drive, and it is turbocharged. I'm going to focus on the reasons why I bought it. The main reason is parts availability. I know a lot of people like to buy new. There's nothing wrong with that. But new does get old after a period of time, and you got to buy parts. Now, this has been my experience from people that own new vehicles, and they've had them for a period of time, versus what I bought. Here they call them surplus, and basically it's been chopped up and sent in a shipping container, and then reassembled and customized and painted. In my case, to suit my needs. And these vehicles are after a maintenance interval, and you're going to do things to them, and you're going to buy parts for them, but you're not paying a new price of a new vehicle. That's another thing too. New vehicles in the Philippines is not the same price as they are in most home countries. They're kind of overpriced the way what I have viewed since I've been here. But anyway, besides the point. Shipping a vehicle in here, that's a nightmare. So we'll get into that one of these days when I get more details on it. But from what I've gathered, it's not worth it. Now, back to my little vehicle. I've owned it for 8 months now, and I've bought some parts for it. And parts are available. Now you can get new and used. Now some parts you have no choice but used. Like my driveline. The front driveline, I had to replace it because you cannot replace the center bearing or the carrier bearing. And you have to have one because there's a cross member that goes over and you can't eliminate it. Now, I have in the past on some vehicles got rid of the carrier bearing, just went straight drive shaft. But this vehicle here, it's not an option. You got to have it. So I had to found a used one. I couldn't find new, and I don't know what the price of a new one would be, but I'm sure it's more than what I paid for the driveline. I bought a very good used driveline for 4,800 pesos delivered. That's less than $100, about $90. And that's not a bad price. Now, in the beginning, the ball joints were bad on the vehicle from day one, and I replaced them immediately. And of course, the people that actually assembled the van, they actually reimbursed me on that. They did pay for it. You can replace the entire assembly, lower control arms as they call it. I call them A-arms. You can buy those for around $50 a piece, about $100. So, I don't know if you can find suspension arms for a Toyota for that, because you're going to be forced to buy it from a dealership. Because these parts houses, if you're lucky for an older model, and it has to be pretty old, you can get some parts. But during probably the first 5 years of the life of the vehicle, you're looking at dealership items only. And if you're out of your warranty period, it's going to be expensive. Now, I've had several friends have different vehicles, and they've had to buy parts for theirs. And in relationship to what I pay for my parts, it's a big difference, even buying them at a local parts store. Now my little vehicle, I'm trying to think of things I've replaced. I replaced the front wheel bearings, not because they was bad, but because they were getting near their life cycle. That was kind of expensive. Of course, Suzuki uses instead of two bearings, they use a single bearing, and it's about 2 inches. And I ordered those. They wasn't really that expensive, but the labor on it was because they had to be pressed in. Anyway, I spent still replacing the two front bearings. I'm trying to get my cost in my head. I think it was around $60, $65 total, including the parts. So that wasn't bad. And I replaced the front brakes. I bought OEM original equipment. And my brake pads were only about 70% used, the original ones that was on it. But I'm the type of person I replace before they get down to the rotors and have to do all that. I bought those pads for, I think about $22, $23, something like that. I think it was 1,200 pesos. Thereabouts. And I replaced the blower motor on the air conditioner. Again, couldn't find new, so I had to replace it with a used. And I got a good used piece. Been very lucky. I have found some very good suppliers of parts that were shipped to me, and they're reasonable. Now, if you can find parts local here where I live, for some odd reason, they want to price gouge. I mean, they're expensive. Example, the A-arms or that I replaced, if I bought them local, I'm looking at almost $200. Big difference. Double the price. Over double. Excuse me. Allergies acting up. I just recently ordered some more parts that I want to replace. I've actually got a little noise, and it's all. I'll tell you a little story on that. I got a little noise that when I'm driving on my dirt road that just was disturbing, and I was afraid it was going to be something dangerous. So I took it to my local mechanic because I can't walk around on the ground anymore. And we sat there, and he went to work trying to find my noise. He fully disassembled all the suspension on the front of that little van. Pulled the struts out. He disconnected the tie rods. Checked the rack and pinion. And the only thing he could find that would possibly be making the noise was a stabilizer link to one of the struts. And upon examination of the struts, I noticed that the top bushings were starting to show their wear. And so I decided I'd just go ahead and get both stabilizer arms and the struts and replace. So I got that. I bought the new struts for a pair of $10. Actually $9.50 if you want to know exact. So that should eliminate that little noise I was hearing when I was on my little dirt road here. I'm trying to think of anything else I've replaced. I did install a voltmeter, which y'all have heard. I keep forgetting to turn the key off, so you wouldn't be driving you crazy with the beep. I actually deleted a video I made, I think it was yesterday, because of the beeping. It was very disturbing. And I put a tire pressure sensor device in there so I can monitor my tire pressure. The best $20 I've invested, because I can keep all the tires at even pressure and know when I go a low tire. Actually, it will alarm if it gets down to 28 pounds. And I'll let you know next month. I'll do a video when we do the renewal of the registration. It will be time next month to do that. Let you know my experience on that. I want to look at my registration, make sure that the roof rack is on the registration. Because I just found out, even though it is detachable, if you want to use it on that vehicle, you're going to have it on your registration. So it means I'll probably have to get an affidavit and the affidavit of body change, as they say, or a component, and make sure it is listed. Here in the Philippines, that's something you got to do. If you do any change, you have to get an affidavit and have it listed on your registration. If you're stopped at a traffic stop and they look at your registration, they see that rack, they're going to cite you if you don't have it listed. I should have thought about that when I had the little multi-cab, because we had to have the canopy on the registration. Now, those are common parts that I replaced on the little van. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, yeah, it was done by the assembler. Did have a turbo replaced, and it's been working perfectly ever since. He actually sent me one to keep me from sending my vehicle back to Cebu, and I had it installed, and it was bad. Of course, it was used, and he paid the labor on it. He sent the money to us to pay the labor to have it done. And I drove it about a mile, a little over a mile, maybe 2 miles, and it was bad. That's when he elected to have the vehicle shipped back to Cebu. And he had believe it or not, a rollback waiting on the other side to load it on and take it to his shop. That's something unusual here in the Philippines. Something to transport a vehicle. At his expense too now. And he took my vehicle and they kept it almost 2 weeks. But once he replaced the turbo, I wanted him to try to find out what that little minor vibration was. I mean, it wasn't nothing shocking, but I could feel it in the steering. It was disturbing because I know that wasn't a natural thing. Well, he couldn't isolate it. He couldn't figure out what it was. And so we got the vehicle back, and we drove it for quite some time to, I think it was last month. And that little vibration was that front drive line that we was looking for. And you know, the funny part about it is I've had it on the rack many times and inspected that drive line, and there was no sign that it was a problem. I did that my own personal self, and there was no sign. No, there was no whatsoever. I mean, it was strange. But the U-joint next to that carrier bearing was bad, but it didn't show any signs every time I've had it on rack. And it really made a lot of noise. And we knew what it was. And we had the drive line removed, and I took pictures and so forth. And of course, I could drive the vehicle in two-wheel drive that way. And I found a drive line for it, and I got it and reinstalled it. It only takes about 10 minutes to put it in. There's only 10 bolts total. I mean, it's an easy procedure. And those little things like that. Now, if you bought brand new, and say, because they're so expensive, or you gonna drive it a long time, and you had to replace some of the parts like I did, you know, and we drive a lot. I've already put trying to do this. Well, I put 20,000 kilometers on it, and that's roughly about 15,000 miles, and that's not even a year yet. So you're looking at 5 years. Say if you're like me and you want to get out and see things, and you put your 100,000 mile on it. That's the wear point of suspension parts and bearings and so forth. Now, if you have to buy those through a dealer, it's going to be expensive. Because more than likely, it just being 5-year-old, you're not going to be able to find common parts. You might find belts and hoses, things of that nature. Or you might find what I call the junk parts, the aftermarket. You might find those. The OEM parts, like I like to use, original equipment, that's where you get into a problem. I could save some money on mine if I want to buy the junk parts. But I'd be replacing them in probably 6 months. Well, why want to do that? I'm not going to save any money. So I buy original equipment. I've got a supplier that has brand new parts, OEM, and he offers. He also offers the comparison to the original for that vehicle, and it's about double the price you get OEM from him. But they sell the aftermarket also, and I can understand why, because the Filipino buys one of these and they need that part. That's probably what they buy and what they can afford to buy. No, it's not that I have big money. It just so happens my income will support those items. But anyway, folks, I appreciate you watching. And that gives you an idea of new versus these surplus vehicles. Now, if you live in a city, brand new is not a bad deal. It's actually probably a better deal. But if you live out here in the provinces and you can't get to the dealership, like in my case, it'd be an overnight stay in most cases, because if it's something that has to be done after lunch, if you can't get scheduled in before, and it's something that's going to overlap, it's an overnight stay. I'm roughly a 4-hour drive. It don't matter which direction I go, which dealership I choose. And that's an added expense. Plus, you 4-hour drive, and that's 8 hours round trip. And you take a couple hours work, that's 10 hours. That's a long day. And that means at least one meal, if not more. So now you understand why I bought surplus. And I've had good luck with it too. I mean, those things are minor issues to me, because they're maintenance items. And a little vehicle's comfortable. It drives very sweet. When you got things right on it, it's quiet. Air conditioner is good. It's got a really good smooth ride, and that's important because the roads are rough here in this country. I mean, it's sad to say, but they're rough. Even when they newly do them, they're rough. But anyway, thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like, and share. And we'll continue on something different here later. Thank you.